I, Emily Carter, 32 years old, stood frozen in my own hallway as my brother's wife, Lauren, cheerfully announced, "We're renovating your master bedroom before moving in." The family home I'd inherited after my parents died was being invaded. David and Lauren were only supposed to stay temporarily while their house sold, but I just discovered they'd already gutted my master bedroom without permission, my parents' space, without asking. They had no idea what renovations I had planned for them. Before I dive into this nightmare, let me know where you're watching from. Hit like and subscribe to follow my journey of reclaiming what's mine. The two-story colonial had been my childhood home for 32 years. Every corner held memories, from height markers penciled on the kitchen doorframe to the window seat in the master bedroom where Mom would read to me during thunderstorms. When my parents died in a car accident 8 months ago, the grief nearly swallowed me whole. Their loss left an emptiness no amount of sympathy casseroles could fill. The timing couldn't have been worse. 2 weeks after the funeral, my marketing firm announced downsizing. My position of 6 years disappeared in a 10-minute meeting with HR. Suddenly, I was unemployed and orphaned at 32. Despite my financial advisor suggesting selling the house, I couldn't bear to part with it. The mortgage payments strained my savings. But this home was my last connection to Mom and Dad. I'd pick up freelance marketing work where I could while job hunting, eating ramen if necessary, but I would keep their home. Through those first devastating months, my older brother David seemed like my rock. 3 years my senior, he'd always been protective. He helped arrange the funeral, stayed late organizing paperwork, and checked in regularly. I was grateful, especially since we'd grown somewhat distant after he married Lauren 5 years ago. Lauren had always been polite enough, though something about her smile never quite reached her eyes. She had a talent for delivering backhanded compliments that left you feeling slightly worse than before. "That outfit is so brave for your body type," or "your career in marketing is perfect for someone who enjoys creativity over advancement." Still, she brought expensive casseroles after the funeral and helped clean out some of Mom's clothes. So I made allowances. Family is family, after all. The first red flags appeared about 6 months after my parents' death. Lauren began dropping by unannounced, often when David wasn't with her. During these visits, she'd make little comments. "This wallpaper is so vintage. Most people would have updated it years ago, but there's something charming about keeping things exactly the same, isn't there?" Or, "These kitchen cabinets remind me of my grandmother's house before they moved her to assisted living." I brushed it off as Lauren being Lauren. She'd always been house-proud about their renovated split level in Maple Grove. Then came the conversation that changed everything. David called on a Tuesday evening, his voice overly casual. "Hey sis, got a minute? So, our realtor thinks we could get a much better price for the house with some updates, which means we need to move out while the work happens. We've already got a couple interested, but they want to close quickly." "That's great news," I said, genuinely happy for them. "Yeah, about that. We were wondering if we could stay with you, just for 2 to 3 months max, while our house sells and we find a new place." I hesitated. The thought of sharing my grieving space made my stomach clench. David continued before I could respond. "We'd contribute to expenses, of course. How about $800 a month? And Lauren's a whiz at organization. She could help you finally sort through Mom and Dad's things." The mention of money swayed me. My freelance work wasn't consistent, and an extra $800 monthly would ease the financial pressure. I guess that would be okay. "The guest room has its own bathroom, so you'd have some privacy." "You're the best, sis. We'll be model house guests, promise." Moving day arrived the following weekend. I expected a couple of suitcases. What pulled up was a rental truck. David and Lauren had brought furniture, kitchen appliances, and enough clothes to open a boutique. We thought it would be easier to bring essentials rather than storing everything, David explained as they unloaded a sectional sofa that definitely wouldn't fit in the guest room. I swallowed my objections and helped direct traffic. They were family. This was temporary, and I needed the money. The next afternoon, I returned early from a promising job interview. The house was quiet, so I assumed David and Lauren were out. As I headed upstairs to change, I heard movement in my parents' bedroom, my bedroom now. I pushed open the door to find Lauren with a measuring tape, assessing the walls. Blueprints and color swatches were spread across my bed. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Lauren didn't even look startled. "Oh, Emily, you're back early. I was just taking measurements for the renovation. This room Has so much potential. Renovation. This is my bedroom. Nobody's renovating anything. Well, David and I thought since it's so much larger than the guest room, it made more sense for us to take this one. The furniture you have is so outdated anyway. We'd be doing you a favor upgrading it while we're here. I stood speechless, as she continued measuring, talking about knocking out a wall to expand the closet space. When David came home, Lauren immediately pulled him in. Honey, Emily's upset about our surprise. I told her how we wanted to modernize the master bedroom as a thank you. David put his arm around me. It would really be an improvement, sis. That furniture is ancient, and the layout is inefficient. Lauren has a great eye for design. That furniture was custom-made for Mom and Dad, I said through clenched teeth. And this is my house. Nobody's redesigning anything without my permission. You're being oversensitive, Lauren said with practiced concern. It's just furniture. Wouldn't your parents want the house to evolve rather than becoming a shrine? That night, after hours of argument disguised as discussion, I compromised. David and Lauren would use the guest room as planned, and no renovations would happen without my explicit approval. David looked relieved at the resolution, while Lauren's tight smile promised this wasn't over. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I had just barely protected my parents' memory from being erased. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. The next 2 weeks brought a slow-motion invasion. Each day, another piece of my home seemed to transform without my consent. Family photos disappeared from side tables, replaced by Lauren's modern glass sculptures. The hand-knit throw my grandmother made vanished from the living room sofa, swapped for a cream-colored designer blanket that was more aesthetically cohesive. According to Lauren, when I confronted her about moving my things, she'd respond with wide-eyed innocence. I just tidied up a bit. Your things are perfectly safe in that drawer, closet, or box in the basement. David, meanwhile, became increasingly unavailable for these conversations. He left early for work, came home late, and spent weekends checking on renovations at their house. When I did manage to corner him, he'd shrug off my concerns. Lauren's just trying to help, Emily. The house does look cleaner with less clutter. It's not clutter, David. It's my life, my memories. Maybe it's time to make new memories instead of living in the past, he'd say before finding a reason to leave the room. On a Wednesday evening, about 3 weeks into their stay, I was heading to the kitchen when I overheard David on the phone in the sunroom. He was speaking quietly, but the old heating vent carried his words clearly. We need to tell her eventually. No, I know we said the house was on the market, but since the foundation issues came up, yes, I know it was weeks ago. Look, she's my sister. I can't keep lying to her about this. Fine, we'll talk when I get home. I stood frozen, the pieces clicking into place. Their house wasn't actively being sold. They'd lied about the whole situation. When David ended the call, I walked into the sunroom, phone evidence in hand. How long have you known your house isn't selling? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. David's face fell. He rubbed his hands over his eyes, suddenly looking exhausted. About 3 weeks before we moved in, he admitted, the inspector found foundation problems that would cost almost $50,000 to fix. We can't afford that right now. So, you lied to me. You said you had buyers lined up. I know. I'm sorry, Emily. Things have been tough. Lauren's spending. It got out of control. We're underwater on the mortgage, maxed out on credit cards. I didn't know how to tell you. By using your words like an adult, not by manipulating me and letting your wife slowly take over my house. David looked genuinely remorseful. You're right. I should have been honest. It's just, you've always been the responsible one, the successful one. It was humiliating to admit how badly I've screwed up. His vulnerability cracked my anger. This was my big brother, the one who taught me to ride a bike, who threatened my high school boyfriend when he made me cry. We were all each other had left now. How bad is it, really? I asked. The truth spilled out. David had lost his job 6 months ago and had been doing gig work to keep up appearances. Lauren had continued spending as if nothing had changed, racking up debt. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage. I'll get Lauren under control, he promised. No more redecorating. No more taking over. Just give us a little more time to sort things out. Please, Emily. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Family loyalty runs deep, and I couldn't bear to throw them out, knowing they had nowhere to go. That night, I set clear boundaries. They could stay 3 more months with the $800 monthly contribution. No changes to the house without explicit permission. My parents' bedroom remained off-limits for about a week. Things improved. Then Lauren began pushing boundaries again, but in ways just small enough that confronting her made me seem petty. Using my expensive face creams and leaving them empty. Borrowing my laptop without asking. Rearranging the kitchen cabinets for better flow. The breaking point came when I walked into my bedroom after work and found Lauren sitting at my mother's vanity, trying on her jewelry. My mother's jewelry box was a sacred object, hand-carved maple with her initials inlaid in mother of pearl. Dad had given it to her on their 20th anniversary. The contents were mostly sentimental rather than valuable. Her wedding set, a locket with my baby photo, the pearl earrings she wore to every special occasion. Lauren had everything spread across the vanity, the box open, drawers pulled out. She was wearing Mom's pearl necklace and trying on her sapphire ring, the one Dad gave her when I was born. "What are you doing?" My voice came out in a horrified whisper. Lauren jumped slightly, then relaxed when she saw me. "These were just sitting here, gathering dust. I wanted to see how they looked. Your mom had some nice pieces. Take them off now." My hands shook with rage. "Don't be so dramatic, Emily. I wasn't stealing them. Besides, your mother would probably love knowing her things were being appreciated rather than locked away. You didn't know my mother. You have no right to speak for her or touch her things." The argument escalated until David heard us from downstairs. When he entered, Lauren immediately turned on the waterworks. I was just admiring Linda's jewelry, and Emily started screaming at me. I've tried so hard to be understanding about her grief, but it's been 8 months. At some point, life has to go on. David put his arm around her. "Sis, I know Mom's things are important to you, but Lauren didn't mean any harm. Maybe you're still holding too tightly to the past." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious right now? She was wearing Mom's jewelry, without permission. How would you feel if I went through Dad's watches?" "That's different," David said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. How is it different?" "You're being too emotional about objects," he said. "They're just things, Emily. Get out of my room, both of you." I pointed to the door, my arm rigid with anger. After they left, I carefully returned each piece to its proper place in the jewelry box, then locked it and hid the key. That night, I researched small safes online. 2 days later, the final straw broke. I came home to find Lauren had cleaned the living room. In the process, she'd knocked over the crystal vase my parents had received as a wedding gift. Instead of telling me, she'd swept the pieces into the trash and placed a modern glass vase in its spot. I only discovered the truth when I took out the garbage and saw the distinctive blue crystal fragments. When confronted, Lauren shrugged it off as an unfortunate accident, but insisted the new vase worked better with the room's energy anyway. That night, I laid down explicit, written rules about touching anything that had belonged to my parents. I taped the list to the refrigerator, had them both read it, and made them verbally agree. The very next day, Lauren moved my father's favorite reading chair to open up the conversation area. When I pointed to the list, she laughed and said, "Oh, I didn't realize that old chair was actually your dad's. It looked like something from a thrift store." I was beginning to realize no boundary would be respected, but I had no idea how far they would go. By the 6th weekend of David and Lauren's stay, I desperately needed space. My college roommate Sarah had been inviting me to visit her in Seattle for months, and I finally accepted. Just 2 nights away to clear my head and gain perspective. "Are you sure you'll be okay without me?" I asked David on Friday morning, still feeling oddly responsible despite everything. "We'll be fine. Might even surprise you with dinner when you get back Sunday," he said with a smile that almost reminded me of my old brother. Throughout Saturday, Lauren sent multiple texts about surprise home improvements they were making. I assumed she meant something minor, perhaps finally fixing the squeaky step or touching up paint in the hallway. When she sent, "You won't recognize the place when you get back," my anxiety spiked. I texted David, but received vague reassurances that everything was fine. By Sunday afternoon, a sense of dread had settled in my stomach. I made an excuse to Sarah and caught an earlier flight home, arriving around 6 p.m. instead of the planned 9 p.m. The house looked normal from the outside, but when I opened the front door, I heard unfamiliar voices upstairs, along with the distinctive sounds of demolition hammering, drilling, the crash of debris. I raced up the stairs to find my worst fears manifested in dust and destruction. The door to my bedroom was propped open, revealing chaos within. The beautiful cherrywood furniture my father had custom-built for my mother was gone. The walls that had been a soft sage green were partially demolished, with exposed studs and electrical wiring. The window seat, where I'd spent countless hours reading, was a splintered ruin. Two men in work clothes were taking measurements while Lauren stood in the center of the devastation, clipboard in hand. "What have you done?" My voice came out as a strangled whisper. Lauren turned, momentarily startled, then recovered with a bright smile. "Emily, you're home early. Surprise, we're finally updating this dated space. Where's my parents' furniture? Where are their things?" I pushed past her to check the closets, which had been emptied. "We've put some pieces in storage, but honestly, most of it wasn't worth saving. That bedroom set was so heavy and old-fashioned. We've ordered a beautiful modern platform bed that will make this room feel twice as large." No, right, I was shaking now, scanning the room for any trace of my parents' belongings. Where's my mother's vanity? Her rocking chair. The vanity had water damage on the bottom drawers, not salvageable. The rocking chair is in the garage for now. Really, Emily, you should be thanking us. This renovation would cost thousands if you hired professionals. David appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable but not surprised. "You're back early. We wanted to have more progress to show you." "Progress? You've destroyed my parents' bedroom without permission. Where's their furniture?" David exchanged a glance with Lauren before answering. "Some of it's in the garage, but Lauren sold a few pieces that were too damaged to keep." "Sold," I repeated, stunned. That furniture was irreplaceable. Lauren stepped forward with her renovation plans, literal blueprints spread across a folding table where my bed used to be. "Look at what we're creating. A walk-in closet here, a spa-like bathroom renovation there. The contractors can finish within 3 weeks." "What contractors? I never approved this." I turned to the workers. "Please stop. This work isn't authorized." The men looked confused, then gathered their tools. "We'll come back when you folks sort this out," one said as they made a hasty exit. Once they left, the full extent of the violation became clear. Not only had they gutted my bedroom, but Lauren proudly showed me online listings where she'd sold my parents' bedroom set, claiming the proceeds would offset renovation costs. I got $750 for that heavy old dresser and another $500 for those outdated nightstands. People love vintage now, though I can't imagine why. I pushed past them to the garage, where I found remnants of my parents' belongings piled haphazardly. My mother's vanity was nowhere to be seen. The rocking chair had a broken arm. Back inside, my shock gave way to fury. "How could you do this? This is my house. We thought you'd be happy with the upgrade," David said weakly. "The master suite was so outdated." "It wasn't outdated. It was my parents' room, with their furniture that Dad built for Mom when they got married." "Well, it's too late now," Lauren said with a shrug. "The old furniture is gone, and the demolition has started. We might as well continue. You'll love it when it's finished, much more suited to a single woman your age." I was speechless with rage and grief. I retreated to the guest bathroom, locking the door behind me, trying to breathe through the panic attack threatening to overwhelm me. Through the heating vent, I could hear them talking in the hallway. "She's overreacting," Lauren said. "Once it's done, she'll see it's an improvement." "I don't know, Lauren. This was too much, too fast. We should have asked her. She would have said no. She's been impossible about every little change. Besides, this is part of the plan, remember? Once we show her she can't afford the renovation costs, we can suggest she sign the house over to us. She can't manage this place financially anyway, and we need somewhere to live." "I don't feel right manipulating my sister like this," David responded. "Do you want to go back to our house with its $50,000 foundation problem, or live in some tiny apartment? This house should stay in the family, and we're family. Emily can find a little condo that's more her size." "It makes perfect sense." There was a long pause before David responded. "I guess you're right. She really can't afford to keep this place on her own." That night, after hours of arguing that resolved nothing, I slept on the couch, unable to face the guest room and unwilling to look at the destruction of my parents' space. I cried until there were no tears left, clutching the one photo of my parents I'd managed to hide from Lauren's decluttering. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, something hardened inside me. This was my home, my legacy, and if David and Lauren wanted renovations so badly, I would show them exactly what that meant. The morning after discovering my destroyed bedroom, I called in sick to my new marketing job. Once David and Lauren left for the day, I began researching tenant laws in our state. Since they were paying me monthly, a landlord-tenant relationship could be established, but I discovered that without a formal lease, they had significantly fewer protections. I called my law school friend Rachel during her lunch break. "They did what?" she exclaimed after I explained the situation. "That's destruction of property, plain and simple. Without your permission, they had no right to modify the home, much less sell your belongings." "What are my options?" I asked, taking detailed notes. "Since there's no formal lease, you have several. You could file a police report for the theft and destruction of property. You could formally evict them, which typically takes 30 days in the state. Or you could make life uncomfortable enough that they choose to leave voluntarily." "What about their claim that they've invested in renovations?" "Without your written approval, any modifications they made are legally considered gifts to the property owner. They can't demand reimbursement for unauthorized changes." Rachel also warned me about squatters' rights and advised documenting everything from this point forward. Take photos, save texts, record conversations if legal in your state. And whatever you do, don't accept any more money from them without a written agreement. After our call, I drove to the hardware store with a growing plan in mind. On the way, I called Mark, my ex-boyfriend, who owned a small construction company. We'd ended things amicably 2 years ago when his business required relocation to a nearby city. We'd remained friendly, occasionally meeting for coffee to catch up. "This is going to sound strange," I began after explaining the bedroom destruction, "but I need your professional opinion on some renovations." Mark listened to the entire story without interruption, his construction expertise adding valuable insight. "What they've done creates several safety hazards, wiring, possible structural issues if they removed load-bearing elements. I'd need to see it, but it sounds like amateur work that could devalue the house. Could you come by tomorrow when they're at work? I need to document everything properly and understand what I'm dealing with." "I'll bring my assistant. We'll do a full assessment, take photos, and help you figure out next steps." That evening, I carefully photographed every room in the house, creating evidence of the current condition before implementing my plan. I was particularly thorough with the destroyed master bedroom, documenting each piece of missing furniture with photos from previous family gatherings that showed what had been there. I also set up my phone to record when David and Lauren discussed their renovation plans that evening, capturing Lauren saying, "Once the contractors finish gutting the bathroom, we'll need to convince Emily to contribute to the materials. When she can't afford it, that's when we suggest she sign over the house to us instead." The next day, Mark arrived with his assistant and spent 3 hours assessing the damage. His conclusions were worse than I expected. They've removed a portion of a wall that provides structural support for the bathroom above. That's not just bad renovation, it's dangerous. And the electrical work they've started doesn't meet code. You'd never pass inspection like this. Mark estimated it would cost at least $15,000 to properly repair the damage they'd caused, not including replacing the furniture. "I can help you fix this. Right, Emily. But first, you need to deal with your brother and his wife." While Mark was there, I received a call from Susan, a family friend and real estate agent who had known my parents for decades. I'd contacted her the previous evening. "Emily, honey, I've been looking into what you asked. Your parents' house has appreciated significantly in the last few years. In today's market, it's worth about $485,000. If you needed to sell, you could pay off the remaining mortgage and have a substantial down payment for something smaller." This information was crucial to my plan. I wasn't in as dire financial straits as David and Lauren believed. While the house was a stretch, on my current income, my new marketing position came with a significant raise. Combined with the occasional freelance work, I could manage the payments. Susan also shared something disturbing. "Lauren called me last month asking about listing the house. She said you were struggling emotionally after your parents' death, and had asked them to handle selling the property. I thought it seemed odd, which is why I called you directly instead of proceeding." My blood ran cold. Lauren had been laying groundwork, telling people I was unstable after my parents' death. How many others had she manipulated with this narrative? Over the next 2 days, I pieced together more disturbing information. My cousin mentioned Lauren had told her I was having trouble coping and might need family intervention. My uncle had heard I was making poor financial decisions out of sentimentality. The picture became clear. Lauren had been systematically undermining me to our family while presenting herself and David as the responsible ones, stepping in to help, with Mark's help. I did some research into Lauren's background. What we discovered was illuminating. This wasn't her first housing renovation situation. She had a pattern of moving in with people and gradually taking over. Her previous boyfriend had ended up selling his condo after she'd improved it beyond recognition. Before David, she lived with an elderly aunt whose home underwent similar unauthorized updates until the aunt moved to assisted living. More concerning, we found evidence of significant financial problems beyond what David had admitted. Lauren had maxed out credit cards in both her name and David's. There were collection notices for unpaid store cards. They weren't just temporarily short on cash, they were drowning in debt. Mark's assistant, who had an accounting background, helped me track down something even more damning. Through online marketplace accounts, we found evidence that Lauren had been systematically selling items from my house, not just the bedroom furniture, but small valuables that had disappeared over the weeks. My father's rare coin collection, my mother's first edition books, even kitchen appliances I'd thought were just misplaced. Armed with this knowledge, I began preparing my renovation supplies. Mark provided legitimate construction materials at cost. I purchased specific items that would be useful for my plan. Each evening, I documented more of David and Lauren's conversations about their plans for my house. Building an irrefutable case, by Friday, exactly 1 week after the bedroom destruction, I had everything in place. My plan appeared generous. On the surface, I would help renovate the house to make it more comfortable for all of us. But every modification was strategically designed to make David and Lauren stay increasingly uncomfortable. While protecting my legal position, as Rachel advised, I created a paper trail showing I was responding reasonably to their initial renovation by continuing the process they'd started. If they complained, they would have to admit their own unauthorized modifications first. I was no longer the grieving, passive sister being manipulated out of her inheritance. They wanted renovations, I would give them renovations they'd never forget. Friday evening, I prepared a special dinner, nothing fancy, just a gesture to set the stage. As we ate the lasagna, my mother's recipe, which felt appropriate, I casually brought up the bedroom situation. I've been thinking about the master bedroom renovation, I said, keeping my voice neutral. You're right that it needed updating. Lauren nearly choked on her wine. Really, you're not mad anymore. I was upset about the surprise, but I've had time to reflect. Actually, your project has inspired me. I'd like to help renovate the rest of the house, too. David looked suspicious but relieved. That's great, sis. What did you have in mind? Well, since you've started with the bedroom, I thought I could work on other areas while you're at work. Make it a whole house refresh. I smiled, channeling Lauren's fake sweetness. In fact, I've taken Monday off to get started. That's so thoughtful, Lauren said, triumph poorly concealed behind her smile. I have so many ideas for the downstairs. I'm sure you do, I replied, but let me surprise you the way you surprised me. Over the weekend, I remained pleasant but busy, making numerous trips to the hardware store and accepting deliveries that I stored in the garage. David seemed increasingly nervous, but Lauren was practically gloating, clearly believing she'd won. Monday morning, I waited until they left for work before calling Mark. He arrived with 3 construction friends who owed him favors, all briefed on the situation and eager to help someone being taken advantage of. Let's start by documenting and securing anything valuable that's left, Mark suggested. We went room by room with a video camera, recording the current state of every space and identifying family heirlooms that needed protection. My mother's jewelry box, which I'd already hidden, was properly secured in a small safe. Mark installed. In the back of my closet, other irreplaceable items, photo albums, my father's watches, remaining family silver were carefully photographed, inventoried and stored in a secure storage unit. Mark helped me rent by noon. The true renovations began. We started with the guest bedroom David and Lauren were using. The closet doors are restrictive, I explained to Mark's crew. Let's remove them to create an open concept storage solution. The heavy wooden doors were uninstalled and stored in the garage. Next came the ensuite bathroom. These old pipes really should be inspected, I said with exaggerated concern. Mark shut off the water to that bathroom only and removed the shower head and faucet handles for necessary maintenance. We moved to the home office David had been using. Security is important for a home office, I noted as we changed the locks, keeping the only key for myself. By mid-afternoon we addressed the entertainment system. Comprehensive rewiring is essential for modern electronics. Mark explained loudly as we disconnected the cable and internet connections in strategic locations around the house, leaving only the kitchen and living room with functioning service. We worked efficiently, making changes that created discomfort without making the house uninhabitable. Each modification was documented as continuing the renovation process initiated by the tenants in a log Rachel had helped me prepare. At 5:30 p.m., we heard David's car in the driveway. Mark and his crew packed up, leaving me to handle the reveal alone. David entered first, stopping abruptly in the hallway. "What happened to the guest room door?" "I removed it to create better flow," I said cheerfully. "Open concept is very now, right, Lauren?" Lauren pushed past him, her expression changing from confusion to outrage as she surveyed the bedroom. The closet stood open and doorless, their clothes exposed. The bathroom door had also been removed to create a spa-like atmosphere. "Where are the closet doors? And why is there no water pressure in our bathroom?" she demanded. "The doors are being refinished, and the plumbing is being updated," I explained sweetly, "just like you're updating the master bedroom. I thought you'd appreciate the modern touches. But we can't shower without water. And anyone can see all our things with no closet doors." "It's temporary," I assured her, using the exact phrase she'd used about their own demolition. "You'll love it when it's finished much more contemporary." David tried the office door, finding it locked. "Emily, I need to get my laptop." "Oh, that room is undergoing security renovations. I can get things for you as needed." Lauren attempted to turn on their bedroom TV, discovering the cable was disconnected. When she tried to use the Wi-Fi, she found the password had been changed. "What is this?" she hissed. "Some kind of joke?" "Not at all. It's exactly what you did to my bedroom improvements without warning. I thought you'd be pleased I was embracing your renovation vision for the whole house." David pulled me aside while Lauren continued discovering modified features. "Emily, this isn't funny. We need our bathroom and closet doors." "Funny? I wasn't trying to be funny. I'm seriously upgrading the house. Just like you did by destroying Mom and Dad's bedroom and selling their furniture without permission." That night was tense. David and Lauren whispered angrily in their now too open bedroom. I slept soundly for the first time in weeks, satisfied with phase 1 of my plan. The next morning, Lauren stormed into the kitchen. "This is childish. We can't live like this." "I completely understand," I said calmly. "It's uncomfortable when someone makes changes to your living space without consulting you first. Really makes you feel violated, doesn't it?" David looked at me with dawning recognition. Unlike Lauren, he was beginning to understand exactly what I was doing and why. Over the next week, my renovations continued systematically. Each day brought new improvements that made David and Lauren's living situation increasingly uncomfortable while maintaining plausible deniability about my intentions. Tuesday, I focused on the kitchen. "These cabinet doors are so outdated," I announced, removing them one by one. "Open shelving is the latest trend, allows for better visibility of contents." By evening, every plate, glass, and food item was exposed on doorless shelves. Wednesday morning, Mark's crew arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, beginning loud demolition work in the hallway outside David and Lauren's bedroom. Lauren, who typically slept until 9 o'clock, emerged in a fury. "What is that noise? People are trying to sleep." "Construction starts early," I explained. "The crew can only come during their available hours." Coffee. Thursday brought plumbing inspections that mysteriously occurred whenever Lauren tried to shower. The water would shut off mid-shampoo, followed by an apologetic announcement, "Just checking the pipes. Should be back on in 15 minutes. Friday was particularly effective. As temperatures outside reached 90 degrees Fahrenheit, the air conditioning underwent essential maintenance that rendered it inoperable during the hottest hours. I made sure to mention how energy efficient the house would be once the new system was properly calibrated. Lauren's rage grew with each improvement. She slammed doors, those that remained shouted about conditions being unlivable, and demanded, "David, do something." David, meanwhile, became increasingly quiet, spending long hours away from the house and avoiding confrontation when present. By Saturday morning, tension had reached a breaking point. Lauren had just discovered that the laundry room was now being updated. With the washer disconnected and her clean clothes piled unceremoniously on the folding table. "This is sabotage," she screamed. "You're deliberately making this house unlivable." I maintained my innocent facade. "I'm just improving the house, Lauren. Isn't that what you wanted?" You said yourself the place needed updating. Not like this. This is crazy. David, tell your sister she's gone too far. David, who had been silently watching our exchanges all week, finally spoke up. Can I talk to you privately, Emily? We went to the backyard, sitting on the old garden bench our father had built. For a long moment, David just stared at the overgrown flower beds. You know exactly what you're doing, don't you? He finally said. I'm renovating. Just like you and Lauren started doing. Cut the crap, Emily. This is revenge. For the bedroom? I dropped the innocent act. Yes, it is. How does it feel to have someone destroy your living space without permission? To have someone else decide what happens in the home you're living in? David rubbed his hands over his face. I know we screwed up with the bedroom, but this passive-aggressive renovation war isn't solving anything. Neither is lying to me about your financial situation, letting Lauren sell my parents' belongings, or planning to manipulate me into giving you my house. His head snapped up. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Lauren discussing their plan to convince me to sign over the house. David's face went pale as he heard his own voice agreeing with her scheme. I can't believe I let things go this far, he whispered. Emily, I'm so sorry. I don't know when I became this person. When did you start letting Lauren make all your decisions? The brother I grew up with would never have destroyed Mom and Dad's bedroom or tried to steal their house from his sister. David's eyes filled with tears. After Dad died, I felt like I failed them. I wasn't here enough in their final years. Then my job fell apart, and Lauren kept pushing for a bigger house, better things. I just wanted to feel successful at something by taking what was mine. I told myself we were helping you, that you couldn't afford this place alone, that it would be better for everyone if we took over. But that was justification for doing something terrible. He looked up at me. Can you ever forgive me? That depends on what happens next, I said, unwilling to let him off easily despite his apparent remorse. When we returned inside, Lauren was packing a suitcase. I'm staying at a hotel until this house is livable again, she announced. David, grab your things. We need to talk first, David said with unexpected firmness. Emily knows about our plan for the house. What plan? Lauren feigned ignorance. The plan to convince her she can't afford the renovations, so she signed the house over to us. She has recordings. Lauren's face flushed, then paled. You were spying on us. That's an invasion of privacy. Like destroying my bedroom and selling my parents' furniture wasn't, I countered. Those were improvements. And that furniture was worthless. It wasn't yours to decide. Nothing in this house is yours to decide. My composure finally broke. You've been manipulating and gaslighting me from day one, spreading lies to our family that I'm unstable, stealing and selling my belongings, and plotting to take my house. David, are you going to let her talk to me like this? Lauren demanded. David stood straighter than I'd seen in months. Yes, because she's right. What we did was wrong, Lauren. All of it. Oh please. We were doing her a favor. She can't afford this place. We need it more than she does. It's not about who needs it more. It's her house, her inheritance. Lauren's eyes narrowed. So, you're choosing her over me, your pathetic sister who can't move on from mommy and daddy's death over your wife. I'm choosing to do the right thing, David said quietly. For once, fine. Lauren grabbed her suitcase. Enjoy your precious family home with all its memories. I'll be at the Marriott. Call me when you come to your senses. She stormed toward the door, then turned with a vindictive smile. By the way, that jewelry box you're so protective of. I already sold the sapphire ring. Got a nice price for it, too. Before I could react, she slammed the door behind her. The admission hit me like a physical blow. Mom's sapphire ring, the one Dad had given her when I was born, was gone. Tears filled my eyes as the finality of that loss sank in. David looked devastated. I had no idea she'd sold the ring. I swear. Emily, Mark, who had arrived during the confrontation to continue the renovations, stepped forward. We might be able to track it down if she sold it online or to a local jeweler. David nodded eagerly. I'll help. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I wasn't ready to forgive him yet, but it was a start. First, tell me everything she took and sold. Everything. That evening, David and I sat at the kitchen table, making a comprehensive list of everything Lauren had from the house. The extent was worse than I'd imagined. Small valuables from every room. Family photos in expensive frames. even kitchen appliances I'd received as housewarming gifts. "I'm so ashamed," David kept saying. "I knew she was moving things, but I had no idea she was selling them. Why didn't you stop her? Stand up to her. This is our parents' legacy, David." I was weak, afraid of losing her, afraid of admitting how badly I'd failed at everything else. He looked up, his expression more like my old brother than the shadow he'd become. "But that's over now. I choose family. Real family." It wasn't perfect, but it was a first step toward healing the rift between us. The next morning, Lauren returned with a demand. David could stay if he wanted to play house with his sister, but she wanted her belongings immediately. Mark and his friends happened to be there, providing moral support and continuing legitimate repairs to the master bedroom. As Lauren began grabbing items, including several that clearly weren't hers, Mark stepped in. "Ma'am, I'd suggest only taking things you can prove ownership of. Removing others' property could constitute theft. Mind your own business, contractor," she snapped. "Actually, I'm also a witness to your admission about selling family heirlooms without permission," Mark replied calmly. "Just something to consider." Lauren glared but limited herself to clothing and personal items that were legitimately hers. Before leaving, she delivered a final threat. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer about the money I invested in renovations." After she left, Rachel called with reassuring news. She has no case. Without written approval from the homeowner, her unauthorized modifications are legally considered gifts to the property, and if she pushes it, we counter with theft charges for the items she sold. David looked relieved but ashamed. "I can't believe I was going to let her take your house." "Our parents' house," I corrected. "And you didn't. In the end, you made the right choice." It wasn't full forgiveness, but it was a beginning. The real work began after Lauren's dramatic exit. Physical reconstruction of the house paralleled the more difficult rebuilding of trust between David and me. Mark created a detailed plan to restore the master bedroom, salvaging what could be saved and finding period-appropriate replacements for what couldn't. David contributed, his entire savings, a gesture that barely dented the financial damage but represented meaningful sacrifice. "I know it won't replace what was lost," he said as he handed over the check. "But I want you to know I'm committed to making this right." The bedroom reconstruction became our shared project. Each evening after work, we tackled another aspect together. David proved surprisingly handy with basic carpentry, a skill I hadn't known he possessed. "Dad taught me when I was in high school," he explained while reinstalling baseboards. "I forgot how much I enjoyed working with my hands." Mark was there almost daily, supervising the more complex work. And I couldn't help noticing he found reasons to stay for dinner. His steady presence provided both practical help and emotional support during a challenging time. 3 weeks after Lauren left, David received divorce papers. She was demanding half the value of home improvements and any equity in our parents' house. Rachel quickly drafted a counter-response outlining the theft of family heirlooms and unauthorized destruction of property. "She's bluffing," Rachel assured us. "Her claims have no legal standing, and she knows it. She's hoping you'll settle to avoid confrontation." She was right. After one meeting with both lawyers, Lauren dropped her demands in exchange for us not pursuing criminal charges for the stolen items. David agreed, just wanting to end that chapter of his life. The sapphire ring, unfortunately, proved impossible to recover. Lauren had sold it to a cash-for-gold place that had already melted it down, but Mark surprised me by tracking down my mother's vanity through an online marketplace. The buyer, upon hearing our story, agreed to sell it back at cost. The day the vanity returned home, I cried as I ran my fingers over the familiar wood grain. "Mom used to let me play with her makeup at this vanity," I told Mark. "It's one of my earliest memories." "Some things are irreplaceable," he said, his hand steady on my shoulder. "But you've saved what matters most, this home and your relationship with David." As weeks became months, our lives settled into a new pattern. David found an apartment nearby and a job at a local hardware store. Modest work, but honest and steady. He came for dinner twice weekly, gradually reclaiming the brother I remembered. Mark's presence in my life expanded beyond renovation help. Our coffee meets became dinner dates, then weekend hikes. His straightforward nature and unwavering support during the crisis revealed a connection deeper than our previous relationship had explored. 3 months after the renovation wars, as we now jokingly called it, we celebrated the master bedroom's completion with a small gathering. Rachel came, along with other friends who'd supported us through the ordeal. The bedroom looked beautiful, not identical to before, but respectful of its history while accommodating my own style. That evening, David, Mark, and I sat in the restored dining room after others had left. The conversation turned reflective, over glasses of Dad's favorite whiskey. "I still can't believe how close I came to losing everything that matters," David said. "Not just the house, but you, my integrity, our parents' legacy." "What was it about Lauren that made it so hard to see what was happening?" I asked, a question that had lingered for months. David considered this. "She made me feel important when I felt like a failure. After losing my job, my sense of self-worth was at rock bottom. She convinced me I deserved more this house. Your inheritance's compensation for my suffering." "Classic manipulation," Mark observed. "Find someone vulnerable and exploit their insecurities." "I'm just grateful I woke up before it was too late," David said, raising his glass to second chances. We clinked glasses, the simple gesture symbolizing how far we'd come in the months that followed. Life continued transforming, in positive ways. My marketing career flourished, making the mortgage payments manageable. David faithfully contributed to repairs, working extra shifts to help compensate for the damages. Mark became a permanent fixture in my life, his quiet strength a perfect complement to my more emotional nature. The house evolved, too, not through Lauren's harsh, unauthorized demolition, but through thoughtful updates that honored its history while accommodating new memories. We repainted the living room in colors Mom would have loved, replaced the dated kitchen counters while keeping the cabinet layout Dad had designed. 1 year after the bedroom incident, we gathered for a memorial dinner on our parents' anniversary. The dining room table, salvaged and restored from the garage where Lauren had relegated it, held our family's good china and flickering candles. "I think Mom and Dad would be proud," David said, looking around at the home we'd fought for and saved. "Not just of the house," I added, "but of us, how we found our way back to being family." Later that evening, after David left, Mark and I sat on the porch swing Dad had built decades ago. "You know what I've learned from all this?" I said, watching fireflies appear in the gathering dusk. "Home isn't just walls and furniture, it's boundaries. It's standing up for what matters. It's knowing when to fight and when to forgive." Mark's arm tightened around my shoulders. "Your parents built more than a house, they built resilience in you. That's a legacy Lauren could never sell or destroy." As darkness settled, I felt a sense of peace that had been missing since my parents' death. The house remained, stronger for having been defended. My relationship with David had evolved into something more honest. And in Mark, I'd found someone who understood that some places are sacred not because of their monetary value, but because of the memories they hold. Looking back, Lauren's entitled announcement about renovating my master bedroom marked both the worst betrayal and the beginning of reclaiming what mattered most. Sometimes it takes someone trying to destroy your foundations to make you realize how strong they truly are. If you've ever had family members overstep boundaries or try to take advantage of your generosity, I'd love to hear how you handled it. Did you confront them directly, or find creative ways to set limits? Leave a comment below, and if this story of standing up for yourself resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Share with someone who might need encouragement to protect their own boundaries. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, sometimes the most important renovation isn't in your house, but in recognizing your own worth.